Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into true crime cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of true crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Are you sick of giving the special people in your life the same old lame gifts year after year? Well, I am here to help you, friends. You know, if you're an avid listener of this podcast, at the beginning of each episode, I shake a genuine kangaroo scrotum sack for good luck. Now you can own your own genuine handmade kangaroo scrotum sack, and not just a sack. Maybe you're looking for a bottle opener, a unique back scratcher, whatever it is that you're looking for, you can find it at rooballs.com and enter code CRIME10 for 10% off your order. That's ROOBALLS.com, promo code CRIME10 for 10% off your order. Keep it curious and keep it shaken. Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
And I'm Megan.
Megan, let's do our...
Gree.
I have the raccoon bones today.
I have the sack.
All right, with our crystals. You're bringing us a case today, and I'm super excited for that. Before we get started, though, I met a lovely young girl named Maddie I went to a trivia night at our local bowling alley.
Oh, fun.
And I happened to she sat at the same table, and after I said my name, she's like, this is going to be so weird, but are you crime curious, Charnell?
Yes.
Like, I am.
We're celebrities sometimes.
Yeah,
Don't you love
I
it?
listen to you. I love your podcast. So shout out to Maddie because
Hi, Maddie.
I had a great time doing trivia with her. And then we have to give cute little Mary a shout out. We've talked about her before because she was the one who was sitting alone at a restaurant and was almost committed because she had her Bluetooth hearing aid.
She did, and they thought she was having conversations with herself.
Yes. Well, she turns out that she's actually a strong volunteer at my children's school, and she was taking tickets to our kids' basketball game the other night, and I said hello to her as I always do, and she's like, we've got to stop meeting like this. She showed me her phone. She was listening to us while she's taking tickets.
Mary, you are a true fan.
She is.
Walking around with her Bluetooth, listening to Crime Curious.
Yeah, but we love her too. So, and she's a Patreon as well. So just shout out. I encountered those people this week and we love you. Thank you all for listening. It's just so sweet when I can feel people loving the podcast and we're, keeping victims' memories alive here on earth and telling their story. And I don't know,
we've had a ton of messages on social media too. So you guys keep reaching out. I try to get back with you. We try to get back with you as quick as we can on Messenger, on Facebook. And some of your shares have just been funny.
Yes.
So we got a lot of love for our 200th episode.
We did. Yes. Thank you all very much for that.
So this is going to be what? 201?
It is in 202.
And 202. I'm keeping the 2 first for 200 for a little bit.
I love it. And this is your first two-parter.
Yes, it is. This is my first. So this is one of the cases that I have been telling you about that I've been deep diving on and kept taking breaks from. So let me jump right in. First of all, without giving away too many details, this is a highly publicized case.
Oh, okay.
And Charnell and I tend to do lesser known cases, but I wanted to cover this one and I wanted to cover it because there's some interesting stuff happening soon on it.
Oh, wonderful.
So let me just start, and some of our listeners are going to know as soon as I say these names and jump in, but this case is the third most highly covered case by Dateline. It is second only to the O.J. Simpson trial and the John Benet Ramsey case.
Really? I knew John Benet would be up
for
there.
sure, right?
Yep.
So there's a mini series that stars Renee Zellweger. I watched it. I got a little information from it in terms of sources, but I'm just going to let you know now, I don't like kind of sensationalized reporting with those mini series. I know some of you do. Check it out if you like that kind of thing. I made it through 1 or 2 episodes and went, I got to find something more technical than this. I just don't enjoy it.
Yeah, it wasn't vibing with you.
It wasn't. I don't care for those dramatized documentaries. So I'm going to give you one that, again, you guys are going to know. And I'm just going to title it The Death of Betsy Faria and Louis Gumpenberger.
Okay.
So jumping right in, I want to talk to you about friendship. I want to talk to you about two friends. Friends that have worked together and become close. Work friends turned life friends.
Is this our life story?
It's God, no. I hope not.
Oh my God.
But we can identify with the whole work friend thing, right?
Turned into life friends, absolutely.
Yes. These two friends are Betsy Faria and Pam Hupp. And I want to tell you a little bit about these women and their friendship. So Pam Hupp was...
Oh, fuck. It just hit me.
It did.
I know the case.
Okay.
I'm so glad you're doing this from your perspective.
I am.
Okay. Wonderful.
So Pam Hupp was born in Missouri on October 10th, 1958 in the middle-class Catholic St. Louis suburb of Delwood. She attended Riverview Gardens High School. She reportedly had a normal childhood upbringing. Mama was a school teacher. Dad was a union man. And she was the third of 4 children.
I've already learned more from all the other things I've learned on this than right in those sentences.
I dove up to my toes in this
friend.
case.
Yep.
Her, as I indicated, mom and dad are they're a typical American family, right? Mm-hmm. There's 4 kids in the house, and she's the third. In 2011, at the time that I'm presenting this case to you, Pam was 53 years old. She was the epitome of a white suburban middle-class mom. Think soccer mom, right?
Yeah.
She had the blonde bobbed hair, the turtleneck, and was a coupon-toting penny pincher, right?
Yes,
you got the coupons in your purse, always out to save money.
Possibly a Starbucks in her hand.
Oh, yeah. In this case, I believe it was a big gulp or like a 32-ounce pop. Pam's normal childhood was riding bikes with friends, Christmas caroling in the winter. And Pam, as a high school student, we can resound with this, right? Mm-hmm. Was the pretty blonde on the pom-pom squad with the infectious laugh.
Okay.
Her friends described her as a little boy crazy and always ready for a fun time. She got mediocre grades, but generally she was an all-American girl. By senior year, that boy craziness accidentally led to her soccer team boyfriend and her getting pregnant after prom.
Sure. As it does.
Yep. They had a shotgun Catholic wedding because that is what good girls do.
Yes.
When they get themselves or they are placed in that situation.
Yeah. We're not condoning that here.
We aren't.
Being knocked up does not mean you have to be married too.
It does not. No. It is 2023.
That's right. That's not for you. That's okay.
So when all of her high school friends went off to college, Pam gave birth to her daughter, Sarah. Mm-hmm. That marriage lasted 6 years before ending in divorce. Shocking, right?
Yeah.
It was contentious. There were many child support issues where Pam would take her ex-husband to court and he would have to show proof of canceled checks to prove that he had actually paid child support that she was taking him to court for.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So she marries Mark Hupp soon after their divorce. Mark was a quiet guy. He actually had played minor league baseball for the Texas Rangers.
No shit.
He did. And when he didn't get drafted, that's when he began his career as a carpenter. Pam gave birth to their baby boy, Travis, and they moved to Naples, Florida in 1989. Because who wouldn't move from Missouri to Naples, Florida?
Absolutely. Literally misery to Florida.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. It.
Her dad unfortunately died in 2001, and they ended up moving back to Missouri to a town called O'Fallon. And this is all in the greater St. Louis area. Yeah. These are suburbs. They did some side work flipping houses for extra cash, and the side work actually turned into a little business. I can't recall the name that they named it right off the bat, but Mark's a carpenter, and
so it's like
she's good with money.
Situation.
Yeah, yes, kind of, absolutely. When she moved back, people noticed she was less exuberant than in her youth. You know, time, age, and children will do that to you.
Yeah, same girl.
She didn't end up reconnecting with old friends, and she really didn't make any new ones either.
Okay.
She was she was active in the women's club at her Catholic church, however, and she sent her kids to that same Catholic grade school that she volunteered at through her church. Pam worked for a couple of relatively low-paying insurance jobs, but ended up filing for disability because she reported that she had chronic pain issues. There's some accidents that she claimed to have suffered. There's not a lot to show that those actually had occurred. But, you know, can you picture the mom who probably just kind of wants to stay at home, but in Pam's case, it might be soul pain.
Yeah.
She had lots of excuses as to why she didn't or couldn't keep her insurance jobs, but ultimately it was discovered she was fired from at least her last one, if not 2 insurance jobs, for forging signatures.
Whoopsie.
Yeah,
That'll do her.
something you just can't do in any industry, but the insurance one specifically. You're dealing with money here.
Definitely. Yeah.
She was, however, as I indicated, very financially money driven. She was always out to make a buck, to save a buck.
Right.
She was apparently lonely and relatively friendless at this point in time. So this is where Betsy Faria comes in.
Yeah, this is a recipe for disaster.
Well, Pam met Betsy at her first insurance job when she returned to Missouri. Pam was working in a clerical job at a local state farm office, and Betsy was the first person she met there. Betsy was your typical Midwestern girl.
Yeah.
She had the big hair, bubbly, huge, big personality, sweet disposition, and was kind of scatterbrained. So maybe don't want to call her an airhead, but a little bit scatterbrained. Yeah. Mostly she was just a sweetheart.
Right.
She was younger than Pam by 11 years when they first met. So that at that point in time, she was 32 years old.
Okay.
She was described as looking like a greeting card illustration with a round face, curly hair, pink cheeks, and beautiful bright blue eyes.
I love that description because it really does match her. That's beautiful. Yeah. A greeting card illustration.
A greeting card illustration. Cherubic, right?
Yes.
And apparently she held a gig as a part-time DJ and was described as being able to coax anyone to the dance floor.
I never knew that. Oh,
Yep.
That's awesome.
Elizabeth Betsy K. Meyer Faria was born in Richmond Heights, St. Louis, Missouri, to Kenneth Meyer and Janet Meyer on March 24th of 1969. And at the time of these events, she was 42 years old. She had 3 sisters, Mary, Julie, and Pamela. Betsy also had 2 teenage daughters from a prior relationship at this time. Now, she met her husband when she was working at a gas station because she was focusing on her DJ career for her business that she called Party Starters. Like,
love it.
Don't you want to hire Betsy to come do your graduation party?
Yes, and get your party started.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Betsy was the life of the party and outgoing, as you probably could have interpreted from my previous description of her. She actually asked Russ out. Russell is her husband, which I'll get to in a minute, but he's called Russ. She asked him out first, and their first date was at a local casino. Like, what a good idea.
Yeah.
He helped her complete a computerized playlist for her DJ business. I'm assuming this is when the love kicked in. She's like, oh,
definitely.
Right? She and Russell Scott Faria were married in 2000, and they lived together in Troy, Missouri, and raised her 2 daughters together. They went camping often, played volleyball. She was very active playing tennis. Betsy was outdoorsy, people describe her as. She was an active lady. She was a member of the Morning Star Methodist Church in Garden Prairie, where she worked in the youth ministry, volunteering by delivering meals to a local women's shelter as well. So she really kept herself busy.
Sounds like she had an amazing heart.
She did. She did. And I think anybody who knew her would say the same. After she and Russ were married, Betsy went back to work in the insurance field where she had worked previously, and this is where she met Pam. Mm-hmm. These 2 friends were almost an unlikely pair. While Pam did like to party and have a good time, at least she did when she was younger, she came across as more mature and logical, and she was described by a boss, a coworker there, as clearly underemployed. So just too smart to be working in the job that she was in.
Sure.
We all know those people, right?
Yeah.
You know, she'd gone back into the workforce after, I believe, being a stay-at-home mom and doing some side jobs, and was just doing a job that was a little beneath her.
Right. But doesn't really seem to have motivation to better herself.
Correct.
Into another one. Okay.
So a former manager said Pam was a positive, level-headed person. She was never mad. And he described her as, quote unquote, seeing the bigger picture and being adept at office politics. Whereas Betsy was the friendly, bubbly office personality that can make every day at work feel like a good time.
Yeah.
We can name these employees right now, right? As Betsy and Pam's friendship was almost instant and progressed, some issues came up at work. So Mike Beauchert was the manager at that agency. He's the one I quoted a moment ago. He started taking note of just some bizarre reports, and take this for what it's worth, because it was even a little bit hard to understand as described. But one time an employee came in and told him, Pam, and another person in the office that she felt bad about not disclosing that she had got insurance money for a new roof, and then she didn't even put one on. So, something's wrong with your roof, you get the money,
you get the
and then
money
you don't
for it.
actually put the roof on.
I see. And then in which case, if you don't do that, then and something really bad happens to your roof,
Well,
they won't cover
here's
it
the
again.
really bad. So 2 months later, they got a letter from a guy who bought her house asking if that was true, that she had never put the new roof on with the insurance money. He said he'd gotten a letter on Beauchert's letterhead and it was signed. Beauchert doesn't recall sending a letter.
Uh-oh.
They also reported that some employees' cars at State Farm were getting keyed.
What?
And so were some cars in Pamela Hupp's neighborhood. And this was bizarre because the neighborhood was described as kind of a veritable Mr. Rogers neighborhood kind of suburb.
So that's weird. Wherever she is, cars are getting keyed.
Cars are getting keyed. I don't know if, people might be mad at her or was it her? I mean, just we're speculating, throwing those things out there.
Seems awful coincidental.
It is. And then some other weird things happen. So the Hupps, Pam and Mark, were described as kind of those neighbors that keep to themselves. But then in the same breath, it's described that Mark was quiet but friendly. He did some deer hunting. He helped neighbors with typical neighborly things. You can picture him now. Maybe a little bit like your husband, right?
For sure.
He's not going to walk over there and initiate conversation. But if they're like, Matt, can you please help me with this?
He's right there.
He's right there. Yeah. Pam was described as being a bit more of a gossip. She was described as a Butinsky, which I call a Karen.
Yes,
you know?
yes, most definitely.
Yeah. So like if there was a neighbor squabble, she wanted to know what was going on and she wanted to be a part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a friend once tell me that she doesn't like to be a part of the drama, but she likes to know all the details of it.
Oh, we know those neighbors. Their noses are pressed to the picture glass window in the front. They're watching everything.
Right. They're the ones vacuuming their front yard.
Yeah, I love it. All of a sudden they're on the phone. They're like, Mary, do you see what's happening in front of the Charnell and Matt house?
Yep,
Do you see what's happening out there?
Exactly.
This is her. For the most part, though, Pam only socialized with her family at this point, up until she met Betsy, befriended her. Now, some neighbors look back and they think about some random things that occurred in their neighborhood. And this is weird, okay?
Okay.
There was a pile of bloody animal bones left in someone's yard.
Stop it.
So...
What?
Well, obviously somebody didn't mow their yard correctly. I feel like this is like your husband's like, how dare you not mow with lines
on diagonal?
I'm going to leave these bones in the front of your house. He would never do that.
He wouldn't, but I could see him fantasizing a little bit like, do they realize that they just mowed it the same way 3 times in a row?
Correct.
That is not good for their grass.
Or how about this one? There were also some very mean anonymous letters that were sent to neighbors. Can you picture it now?
Aggressive.
Cutting out the letters in the magazines and gluing them to the piece of paper.
Oh, shit. I don't have the patience for that.
No, I don't know. My reaction to getting a mean anonymous letter would probably be to blow it up poster size and put it in my front yard on a stake.
Yes,
create a moat
Yep.
around my house.
I love it. Oh my God.
Yeah. So after getting fired from the State Farm job, and we think we know why now, right? I've just kind of indicated there was this forgery that happened. I think that came back on Pam. Well, Pam lost touch with Betsy for a few years. So I don't know that they were as close as people thought they were at that point in time. I think she was truly at that point kind of just a work friend. And then when you lose the job, you don't work there anymore. You aren't as close to the friends from there anymore. And that's happened with me. There's people who I love, but I really only communicate with them a couple times a year now that I used to work with.
People come into our life for a reason at certain points and then, and then go out. It ebbs and flows.
Absolutely. So by 2010, Pam Hupp had actually stopped working, and this is when she's claiming disability benefits for back, leg, and neck pain.
Back, leg, and neck.
Yeah,
Oof.
I mean, it doesn't get any worse. It's like almost all the appendages. I didn't see an arm or shoulder on there, but I mean, I'm sure
it's because she got approved for the back, leg, and neck. She didn't need to add those in.
Well, in January of 2010, which is around the same time that Pam stops working, Betsy finds out she has breast cancer.
Okay.
Pam got in touch with her after she found out to offer her support, which is good. I would do that with any friend
100%.
if I found that out. Betsy's dad, Ken Meyer, asked Betsy the summer after her diagnosis about her finances and providing for her daughters in case of a bad outcome. This is a typical daddy response, right?
I mean, we just have to think of all possible avenues here and be prepared.
Well, even Betsy, she had expressed to her dad, she was worried that her 2 teenage daughters would spend the money foolishly and was afraid her husband, Russ, would just kind of piss it away.
Oh, right.
So I think there was maybe some responsibility and there were some issues, which we're going to get to. Ken reported that Betsy had asked him to come to one of her cancer treatments. But when he got there, her friend Pam was there to support her. So they didn't really talk. At least he wasn't going to talk openly in front of Pam. And Pam started taking her friend Betsy to all of her cancer appointments.
Yeah.
In 2011, Betsy received exciting news, and it looked like she'd beaten the cancer. She and Russ planned, I love this, a celebration of life cruise for November of 2011.
Oh, awesome.
And they invited their closest friends and family to come on this cruise to celebrate. The month before the cruise, in October of 2011, Betsy was devastated to learn that her cancer had reoccurred and it had metastasized to her liver. Okay. So she's got kind of a terminal diagnosis at this point. Still fighting, though. They went on the cruise anyway.
Yes.
And she swam with the dolphins to fulfill her bucket list item.
Yes, you're getting me.
Yeah, I know. Now, Pam wasn't actually part of the group that went on the cruise. But when Betsy returned, she continued to spend almost every day with her friend. It was on December 22nd that Betsy went to play tennis as she was still feeling good, and Pam went to watch her play. So this woman is going to have chemo. She's sitting through cancer treatments. You know how that makes you feel. But on her good days, she was still outdoorsy,
living her best
cherubic,
life.
living her best. But yeah, absolutely. Live like you were dying.
Yeah.
That song kind of thing. So the next day, Pam and Betsy went to a library. And Betsy had a librarian witness her signature on a change of beneficiary form. She removed Russ and made her friend Pam her sole beneficiary on that policy. So I, again, will note there had been discussion before this that she did not trust Russ with those finances, if you recall the statements that Betsy's dad, Ken, made.
Yep.
So other people in the family were concerned about this as well. Tuesday, December 27th, Pam arrived at Betsy's mom's apartment in Lake St. Louis to take Betsy to chemo as she usually would. Janet Meyer told Pam that, quote unquote, they had already gone. Well, Betsy had texted Pam earlier and told her that she didn't really need her help that day because her mom's friend, Bobby Wan, who was Betsy's former babysitter actually, was in town and she was going to take her so they could spend time together.
Okay.
Pam stated that she had never received the text, but there was an indication that she did. And she actually replied to it and even said, bummer.
Oh, okay. So
Right?
yeah, you did receive this text, you replied to it, and then you showed up anyway.
And this is what happens. To Betsy's surprise, Pam shows up to the cancer center where she's retrieving her treatment and talking to Bobby. Because when you're sitting, if anybody's ever been through chemo or knows somebody who has, they're sitting there in a chair. There's usually a few people in the room. They put up curtains, but you're sitting there with an IV and you're getting your cancer treatment. And somebody's here to talk to you. Some people read, some people sleep. Betsy's a talker, and she always had somebody with her there to talk to. Betsy had actually been staying with her mother over Christmas break. And Pam volunteered to drive her from her mom's after treatment to her own home in Troy. So she stays at the cancer center with Bobby and Betsy.
Even though she was not
invited
that day.
Yes. And then when they get back to Betsy's mom's, she says, well, I can take you home because she had been staying there. She being Betsy had been staying at her mom's for a few days over Christmas. Well, on Tuesdays, and this is the day of the cancer treatment, Betsy's husband, Russ, would do game nights with friends. Russ was going to pick his wife up, but Pam offered to go and get her. So she messaged her husband and said, Pam wants to bring me home to bed. My white blood cells are low and I need rest. And then it continues with, I didn't get much sleep. Mom snored.
Oh.
So she wants to sleep at this point.
Yep.
Russ verified with Pam that verified with Betsy that Pam would be dropping her off. And then Russ was happy then because he could go and do his regular thing and play his game night with friends.
Right.
So Russ Faria. Russ is described as a sturdily built, plain-spoken guy. He had a face that people say could either look friendly or tough, which I would say was an oxymoron, but we know those guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
For sure. I actually feel like I also have that face.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you don't have dark thinning hair and wore a trademark fedora, but it would be cool if you did.
For sure. Well, can we not do the thinning part?
No, we won't do that. But so he has dark thinning hair and almost always wore his trademark fedora. I can picture it right now. I do too. There's just something classy about it. Or even a little naughty. I don't know.
Depends on your perspective and how you're feeling that day, I think.
Well, that's true. Perception is everything. Russ was a simple kind of a guy. He enjoyed fishing and riding motorcycles. He was very close to his mom. and very close to his wife, Betsy, when they weren't having marriage turmoil, which had happened a couple times in the relationship. And she is going through cancer treatments and has a bad diagnosis. So you can only imagine the stress, right?
This is hard. Mm-hmm.
Russ went back to school during their marriage, and he obtained an IT job with a place called Enterprise Holdings. As was a typical Tuesday for Russ, he spent the day working from home until 5. Then he left, got gas at the Conoco in Troy, and called his mom at 5:22 p.m. to say he wouldn't have time to swing by for dinner, as he often would do. He had promised Betsy that he would stop and pick up dog food, and he needed to buy cigarettes. So Russ stops at a convenience mart in Lake St. Louis at 5:56 p.m. and buys 2 bottles of Snapple. Do you remember Snapple?
I do remember Snapple.
Is Snapple still there?
Shit. It is.
Oh my
it
God.
is. I just have not picked one up
I'm
in
buy
years.
a Snapple. Next time I come over, I'm giving a Snapple.
Yeah,
Do
we'll
people
go down
still
memory
spike
lane.
those with vodka?
I'm sure they do.
Okay. Is that like putting a Jolly Rancher in your Zima too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They make that still too, by the way. It's just harder to find.
Yeah.
So Russ stops to get his Snapples. He arrives to his friend's house at 6 p.m. So he then spends the evening at his friend Michael Corbin's house, watching movies from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. So they usually played, the purpose of their game night was they played this D&D, so Dungeons and Dragons style game called Roll Master. But they were short a player that night, so they watched a couple movies instead. He reports they watched the new Conan the Barbarian and a movie called The Road, which they all thought was boring. So I don't think they watched the whole one.
Right. They're just a bunch of bros hanging out drinking beer, probably, or excuse me, Snapple.
Yeah, Snapples. Well, I don't think it was the beer because they also admit that they smoked a little pot.
Oh, okay. Yep. Snapples and weed.
Yeah,
sure,
Snapples,
sure.
Snapples, weed, and cocaine. Conan.
Wow.
There was no snow. There was
None of the devil's sugar.
none
was
of
there.
the devil's sugar. Yeah. So let me clarify.
That was funny.
Yes, Snapple, weed, and Conan, the Barbarian.
Also, good movie, by the way. I love all the Conans.
Well, there's a lot of scantily dressed men, so I couldn't imagine why.
Maybe. I never put 2 and 2 together, Megan, but you might have just hit it right on the nose.
I just did perverse math for you.
My favorite kind of math.
Mine
it's
too.
the only math I like.
Right. I didn't major in math for a reason, but if that was the kind of, could you imagine statistics class with, instead of them giving you baseball stats, they gave you perverse statistics?
Yep, I would.
Or murder statistics?
I would have learned so much more.
Note to all of you math teachers
Right.
that some of us prefer those true crime and naughtiness as preferring or over baseball stats. So anyway, he leaves about 9 p.m. and 2 other friends left at the same time. Russ stops at an Arby's in Lake St. Louis, orders 2 junior cheddar melts, and 8 as he drives back the approximately 24.6 miles to Troy, where he lives.
Weed. That makes Arby's sound delicious.
I love that you said that already. He had munchies, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
2 junior
I believe
cheddar belts.
everything about this story because it's so specifically right on.
Right?
Like, yep, this tracks.
Oh my. So Russ gets home. The dog's outside on a chain, so he lets the dog in. He puts the bag of dog food on the floor, takes off his jacket, steps in the living room, and this is where he finds Betsy. He states later that at first he thought maybe she was feeling sick, and had gone down to the ground, and so he knelt down next to her, and then it registered to him that there was blood in her hair and pooling up all around her neck. And here's your one of many trigger alerts. He saw a knife, the black-handled kitchen knives that they own, sticking out of her throat, and saw that her wrists were slashed. So Betsy had been depressed before and had even attempted suicide before. I don't know if you knew this, but this is what Russ reports she'd had. And I think you see that those happy, bubbly people who are suffering internally but make everybody else happy.
Yes. We see that often.
Very often. Very often.
And here she is going through
Yes.
a horrific experience of that's more than likely
it's terminal. We've
life.
had a metastasization to the liver, and we know when it gets that far, she's probably staged out 4.
Yep.
At the minimum, hopefully not 5, but again, terminal. So Russ gets up off the floor knowing that his wife is dead and calls 911. There has been much controversy around Russ Faria, his actions, and his reaction, specifically regarding this 911 tape. So we don't always do this. I'm going to play the 911 tape, and I'm going to play it in its entirety.
Okay.
It is 10 minutes long.
Okay.
One, if you don't want to listen to it, don't.
Just skip through 10
you
minutes.
You can skip.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, if this type of thing bothers you and you get bothered by what you're going to hear here in a second, skip ahead the 10 seconds.
Yeah.
10 minutes.
That too.
All right.
Time is hard.
Time is hard. Analog clocks.
Lincoln County 911, what is the location of your emergency? Okay, ma'am. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I need you to take a couple deep breaths so I can see what's going on. What is the address where you need this to come?
130 C-Mac.
Okay, what is the telephone number you're calling from in case we get disconnected?
I don't know this number. I know my cell phone number.
Okay, what is that number?
It's 314-565-9207.
I'm sorry, repeat the last four.
9207.
Okay, who am I speaking with?
My name is Russell Faria.
Russell, what's going on there?
I just got home from a friend's house, and my wife killed herself. She's on the floor.
Okay, Russell, I need you to calm down, honey, okay? I need you to calm down, take a couple deep breaths. We're going to get somebody on the way there, okay? What did she do? Do you know?
She's got a knife in her neck and she sliced her arms.
Okay, calm down, honey. Is she breathing at all?
No.
She is not breathing? Okay. Russell, is there anybody that we can call for you? Okay, Russell, take a couple deep breaths, hon, okay? Okay, what is your mom's name?
My mom is Lucy.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you, hon.
Lucy.
Lucy? And what's her last name?
Faria.
How old is your wife?
My wife, she's 42.
32?
42.
42? Okay, and you're for sure she's not breathing right now?
She's dead.
Okay. What is your mother's phone number?
Her phone number is 636 265 0420.
0420?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, they're on the way, honey. They're just calm down for me, okay? Russell, how long were you gone today?
I left around 5. I just got back. But she was at her mom's, and her friend was bringing her home, so I don't know what time she got home.
And you said that, has she been depressed lately?
She's got cancer.
She is, but she does have cancer.
Yeah.
Russell, where's the knife now? I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said, hon. It's laying right next to her?
No, it's in her neck.
It's in her neck? Okay.
Oh my God! Why would she do this to me? Why would she do this?
Russell, they're on the way, hon, okay? They'll be there shortly. Is there anybody else there in the house with you?
No, there's nobody else here.
couple deep breaths, honey, okay?
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Was she on any medication?
She was on medications for her chemotherapy. And she's just waiting chemotherapy today.
Okay, can you do me a favor? What I need you to do is I need you to get those medications for the paramedics, okay?
I think they're here on the table.
Yeah, we have everybody coming to you, okay? But what I need you to do is take a couple deep breaths and try to get her medication together, okay? Russell, where are her medications?
I think they're here on the table.
They're on the table?
Okay, where? Here. And there's the pill bottles here. I think these are it.
Okay, where is she in the house?
She's not in the room.
In the living room? Okay. Where are you right now? Okay.
My God. Oh, my God. Oh, God. God.
Russell, they're on the way, hon, okay?
Oh, my God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Please, God.
Russell, take a couple deep breaths, okay? I don't need you hyperventilating, okay?
Oh, my God. What am I going to do? Oh, my God. Oh, God. Oh.
What is her name?
Her name is Betsy.
Betsy?
Yes. Oh, Betsy. No. Oh, my God, no.
No, her friend she went to her friend's house and her friend dropped her off.
She was at her mom's
At her mom's house and her friend dropped her
And
off.
her friend was going to bring her home from her mom's house. Oh, my God.
They're on the way, hon.
What am I going to do?
Just go ahead and wait for them to get there, okay?
I don't know what to do. Oh, my God, no.
Russell, do you think that she's beyond help right now?
I think he's dead.
Okay.
Oh, my God. God.
Okay, just take a couple deep breaths for me, hon. If you need to, step outside, okay?
Oh. Oh.
Russell, take a couple deep breaths, honey, okay?
I'm trying. Oh, my God, no. Oh, my God.
You have dogs outside?
My dog, she's on the chain.
Okay.
She's in the backyard.
Okay.
She's over. Oh.
Russell, I have a couple officers that are out there right now. Can you do me a favor and open your front door?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's unlocked. It's unlocked.
Okay, can you go meet him at the door?
It's unlocked.
Russell, are the officers inside with you now?
Oh, my God. There's one right here.
Okay, well, good luck to you, honey. I'm going to go ahead and hang up, and we're going to try to call your mom, okay? All right. Bye-bye.
Thoughts?
Hmm.
Can you understand
Yeah.
why there might have been some maybe controversy around the 911 call?
Yes, and I always am cautious.
Me too.
About trying to gauge other people's reactions because we're all different.
Yep.
We all respond to trauma differently. And I almost think, I do think that it's unfair for people to make judgments whether someone is too hysterical or too calm when I don't know. I've never walked in and saw my wife
Dead on the floor.
Right. I have no idea how I would respond. And I guess I don't like it as humans that is something that could be used against somebody in court is how they respond to trauma.
I think I said a couple of episodes ago that I've heard thousands of 911 case tapes over the past 20 years doing this job. Runs the gambit. People respond interestingly. It could be with hysterics like this. It could be with surprising calm, or maybe even intermittent, calm and hysteria.
Sure.
There are actually experts that you can call in, but you can't just take what you heard without listening to evidence that comes out in the 911 tape as well. Was there anything that stood out to you evidence-wise that he mentioned?
Well, didn't you mention something about the dog? Didn't he let the dog off the chain? And then he said in the 911 call that the dog was chained up outside.
So it will, I don't know if it's going to come up later or not, but I do recall specifically from my research, at one point in time, it's alleged that there was some type of maybe even a paw print on her.
Okay.
And so the thought is that when he let the dog in, of course, what would a dog do?
Right. It's going right to
owner on the floor bleeding. And so I believe that Russ let the dog back outside at some point.
Okay.
But and we're going to get to time frames here. There is not a significant delay in him calling 911. Okay. And I'm going to give you those time frames.
From the time that he got home.
I think what's important to take from the 911 tape, other than, Russ's reaction, which I'm going to leave to you guys at this point to decide whether this is genuine or not, is that he did corroborate a couple things we already know. She had been at her mom's and her friend brought her home.
Yep.
And he indicates that he just got home.
Yep.
Okay. So those are important things to know. He does say, my wife killed herself.
Yes.
Right. And indicates that she's struggling with cancer. There's a whole bunch of medications, in fact.
Right.
I like the 911 operator. Maybe she waited a little long to ask the name of the victim.
Thank you. I looked at you when she finally did. I looked at you like, okay, thank you for finally doing that. And asking the question, is she beyond resuscitation?
Yes.
That was like 7.5 minutes in.
I think not to be judgmental of her, though, dealing with somebody, she's dealing with somebody who's in hysterics. And you're trained to deal with people in different ways. Giving him a task, go get her medication.
I was going to point that out.
That's brilliant. That's exactly what you're supposed to do.
Him down.
She was trying to keep him calm by giving him a task, giving him something to do. So was there something else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, because I was going to point out the same thing that you did about he tells her my wife committed suicide. And the reason that I think that is because, she's got injuries on her wrists, which in a snap judgment, that's something that we go to, right? But also, it doesn't daunt, not everyone listens to true crime like we do, guys, and a dead person means murder, right?
Right.
That is not something that a typical person would immediately think, especially if there's some sort of other signs that indicate that they may have taken their own life, like past things that he knew of her from her past. And
having been depressed that she has cancer, and then the slit, he said her arms, it's obviously her wrists, which I'll get to.
But again, that hysterics.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the most concerning thing is the knife in the neck. How many people do you know when they commit suicide stab themselves in the neck?
Right. I don't know that I've ever seen a case study like that.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Agreed.
I think this is why we get what we get from this next part. So this is going to be incredibly graphic. If the 911 tape didn't upset you enough and you are sensitive to these type of things, you're going to want to skip ahead again.
Yeah.
When first responders arrived, Betsy's body was already cold and stiff. Blood was coagulated on her scalp and was already dried hard on her wrists, only wet in the deeper pools. So in the deeper cuts.
Okay. All right. This had been a significant amount of time that had passed.
So both a fire captain and an EMS supervisor came to a conclusion that Betsy had died more than an hour before they responded. One might say, why do we have an EMS supervisor and a fire captain making this determination? They do this every day. You know, people respond to suicides.
Yep.
In their opinion, she had died more than an hour before they responded. Her time of death was later reported as being maybe between 7:20 p.m. and 9:41 p.m.
9:41.
Yeah, isn't that strange?
Yes.
We know that she's rigor mortis is set in. She's cold and stiff, and the blood has literally already started to dry on her wrists, and they put it up to 9:41. It rubbed me wrong too.
I didn't like that.
Betsy's wrists weren't just slashed; they were cut to the bone.
Motherfucker.
Like someone almost cut her hands off, cut to the bone.
My God.
Okay. If you are aware of what occurs during a suicide attempt, these are not that deep.
Nope.
It would be really hard to cut yourself that deeply. Now, we know people who've been in situations where there's adrenaline where they had to cut their own arm off. Right?
Yeah, but it takes them a hell of a long time to get up to that point.
You got it.
And all your instincts, your survival instincts go against you doing that.
Correct.
And on both arms, both wrists, come
wrists.
on, which means she would have had to have used one injured wrist to cut the other at some point.
One wrist cut all the way down to the bone, then using that wrist to cut the other one down to the bone. No. And then we have a knife in her neck. A knife had also sliced into her skull, plunged into her left eye, and then lacerated her throat where it remained lodged, severing her right carotid artery.
Yeah, no, she didn't do that to herself.
No.
No.
And Charnell, this was very obvious to first responders.
Was it obvious from the position that she was laying, or?
It was obvious as soon as they saw the injuries that this was no suicide.
Oh, yes. I meant the eye, the skull, all of that stuff. Okay.
No, that wasn't.
I'm thinking of it from Russ's perspective, where he clearly did not.
He saw
did
blood.
not move her. Right. So could he have seen the extent of her injuries? And not to get too graphic here, guys, but when there is a lot of blood, it can be very difficult to actually see where the wound and injury is coming from.
Correct. And recall I said the blood had already coagulated on her scalp and was drying.
Yes.
So it would have potentially been hard to see a puncture wound in or through the eye.
Right.
So there was a second knife found also under a pillow on the couch that she had been laying on previously.
Really? Okay.
And that's all that comes up with that. Just there had been a second knife found. And these are the knives. They're black-handled kitchen knives that he identified. They're in their kitchen.
They're knives.
They are their knives. Russ had told 911 that Betsy had killed herself. Responders were in disbelief. It was obvious they were at a crime scene. Now, just to continue with what you had mentioned, most of the stab wounds on Betsy were hidden by her clothing. But I just want to let you know, there were deep, deep punctures in her abdomen area, and her lungs, liver, and spleen were all perforated.
Wow. And she was laying on her stomach, correct? Or does it not?
I was
really
not
indicate?
able. So there's reasons that I wasn't able to get that specific information, in which I will get to toward the end of this. But it is possible she was kind of half on her back, half on a side.
Okay.
And that the part of her head that had been stabbed and the neck part was up. So if you can picture it kind of being on your side with the knife sticking out of the neck.
Okay.
So Betsy, all in all, had been stabbed 55 times.
Holy shit. Yeah. I don't remember that from previous. I mean, sometimes details get fuzzy when you haven't heard a case in a while.
I listened to a lot of them.
Oh.
I'm trying to give you more details than you've heard.
Yeah. Oh, you already have for sure. But wow.
The house was terribly messy. Now, I'm going to jump in before I even explain what happened, but can you picture too, let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. He's been home alone over Christmas for 3 days. He's working. He's a man. I mean, sorry, fellas, but you ain't always the cleanest.
No.
And she's been at her mom's.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
So some of what I'm about to describe doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
So especially this first part. There were crusty saucepans in the sink.
Sure. Okay.
And shopping bags and Christmas decorations. But the Christmas decorations that bothered me a little bit was they were kind of scattered all around Betsy's body, indicative of perhaps a struggle.
Yeah.
A search of the home was completed by law enforcement, and thrown in the back of Russ's closet was a pair of slippers made of tan suede that were bloodstained.
Mm-hmm.
So blood stained the top of one of the shoe's right toe area, and the right side of the slipper was stained and ran along one side of the other slipper as well. It's almost like they touched.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Hollingsworth, Lincoln County Sheriff's Deputy, was the first officer on the scene. So we know that, of course, EMS had arrived and such, but he was the first officer. He stated Russ was visibly upset, but was having a hard time producing tears from his eyes. So all of the hysteria that we heard, he indicated no waterworks came with it.
No panic water came with it.
I've heard that. I love that.
I love it.
He was described as being in a state of panic, speaking of panic water, and having difficulty talking and breathing. And in that 911 call, we heard him moaning, no, over and over again. And then, my God, oh my God, oh my God. The operator was trying to calm him down. And he was trying to be compliant with her, in my opinion, right? He just was in his head. When Deputy Hollingsworth sat Russ in the patrol car, he tried to distract him, talking about the neighborhood. And Russ started chatting normally with the deputy and even laughed.
Okay.
Calmed down completely, starts laughing about stuff neighborhood-wise.
Okay.
This rubbed police wrong and caused them to be suspicious.
You know, this doesn't bother me. Is that okay if I say
that? It is okay.
That?
It is okay.
It doesn't bother me. I've done this same thing, guys, with people whose children I've removed. We've went from a state of panic and hysteria to then a state of de-escalation and calming down and redirecting the brain, and honestly the body going into survival mode. And if something strikes you as funny, there's even things that like you wouldn't ordinarily laugh at that all of a sudden you're laughing at because you're in
some people uncomfortably laugh.
Yes.
And they make you nervous because they're laughing and you find it uncomfortable, but they can't help it.
Right. And I have been in a place before where I have been hysterical and not crying, making crying sounds, but actual water coming out of my mouth. That too. That hasn't happened.
Charnell drools when she cries.
Yes, my panic water comes out of my mouth.
So funny.
Without producing tears.
Right.
Honestly, that really does happen to people. It takes a lot for actual tears to come out of my body. But
Sure.
But you can see my emotions and you can, feel them before my body actually produces the panic water.
So law enforcement in this case, Charnell, they indicate then that anytime Russ was alone for a few minutes or you didn't talk to him for a couple minutes, then presumably reality flooded back and his emotions would surge over the top.
Okay.
So not just like crying or the little moaning stuff, but like the over the top. And we heard the hysteria on the 911 tape.
So we can see this from two perspectives. The police might be seeing this as this is all a fucking act.
They said this was very suspicious too. Rubbed whoever it was, whichever police officers there were completely rubbed the wrong way by Russ's behavior.
Okay. Or it can be seen another perspective of just, like you said, everything just came flooded back. There's no one there to distract him, and his body takes over to the hysteria.
People calm down when you're interviewing them usually.
Absolutely.
When you're asking questions.
When you're giving them a specific task to think about and process and tell you.
Which was why the 911 operator was trying to give him a job to do by finding those meds. All right, this part rubs me in a weird way.
Okay.
One of the detectives asked Russ why he hadn't embraced his wife. Apparently this is something that bothered the police officer, that he hadn't hugged or embraced his wife. Can I note, trigger alert, because this is very graphic, she was lying lifeless with her tongue hanging out and a knife sticking out of her throat.
Yeah. Guys.
I love my spouse.
Me too.
But if he's laying there like that, I'm not hugging him, Charnell.
No, me neither. Megan, me neither.
Also, we both know not to disturb a scene, whether it's a suicide or not. I'm not going to touch anything until I know police are coming.
But I don't think that is an expected reaction that it should be asked as an interview question. That means that held no bearing to me.
Well, and this wasn't during the interview. I believe this may have been at the scene.
Okay.
It wasn't specified, to be honest with you. But I don't like the question.
I don't like that question.
No
either,
offense to the officer who asked. I think there was a reason he asked it. And I think probably it was because he wasn't liking the response he was getting. He was feeling uncomfortable.
Most definitely.
And maybe that officer would have immediately run it. Well, he's a police officer. Now, if a police officer runs in and sees their spouse or somebody laying on the floor, they might go right over to him and touch him and grab a hold of him.
Maybe.
And start CPR and do all of those things.
Right. But you can't base what you think you would do in this situation on projected onto others and use it as an analysis
what an
tool,
expert
right?
would do what an expert would do in comparison to what a reasonably prudent, normal, common person would do are very different. And
Absolutely.
they actually can be held to different standards for purposes of negligence and things like that. And, neighborly assistance type of things. So they get Russ down to the police station. This is normal, by the way. He's not under arrest.
Definitely.
When Russ is at the police station, he's in the interview room. And as you and I are aware, detectives will come and go. And there are times when a suspect is left alone in an interview room. So there's a pinhole camera that records him while he's in the room. And he's whispering during the times that police leave, no, and saying Betsy and sobbing and praying. However, during the 10 hours of interrogation, he completely held himself together and repeated over and over once they started to get into the accusatory part, I wasn't there. I didn't kill her. Mm-hmm. Russ was taken for a polygraph the next afternoon at the Lake St. Louis police station. Detectives told Russ he failed, and their tones at this point completely switched to accusatory. Russ,
so did they give the next day?
The next day.
I guess physiologically I have an issue with that.
Oh, girl, we're going to get into it.
Okay.
You are not the only person who had a problem with this.
Okay.
Russ repeated that what he saw when he got home is how he found Betsy, that he simply walked in the door and found her like that. And one of the detectives looked at Russ, point blank stated, you killed your wife.
I don't like that.
So Pam Hupp, who had dropped her off, her friend, she was interviewed and more information came out. Betsy had apparently made it noted recently that she wanted to move back to Lake St. Louis, closer to her parents, chemo, tennis, and her friends. And she had told other friends this too, Charnell. Mm-hmm. Betsy had planned to move her and Russ into her mom's old house in that area. She told Pam, per Pam's conversation with detectives, that she, Betsy, planned to test the idea of moving on Russ that evening and that she knew he was going to be furious. Pam said she felt guilty even dropping Betsy off to deal with this conversation with Russ alone, but Betsy insisted. Pam told the police that Russ had a violent temper and that Betsy had been scared of him. I believe the word she used was he was verbally not very nice to her. She also claimed that Russ was a heavy drinker with that violent temper and that when Betsy had considered leaving him, he had threatened her.
Okay.
To top it off, Russ was considered, in some people's opinions, to be playing that role-playing game that I told you about.
Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, it was called a Rollmaster.
Oh, yeah.
And they consider that a dark fantasy style type of game where perhaps, I mean, let's just be honest. They're saying somebody took something that was in a game that was dark and brought it to real life. Kind of like a make the fantasy real
Is this blaming video games for all of our troubled youth?
Kind of, which is why every time I see a mushroom and I'm running under blocks, I grab it immediately so I can grow.
Yes. Mario.
Mario. There was also a history of Betsy and Russ's marriage being rocky, and that Russ would be alternately calm and then hysterical even throughout the marriage. So he could be a calm guy, and then when he would get pissed during the argument, he would take to hysterics.
So then that would coincide with his reaction. These are his.
You're so smart. It's like you're an investigator.
You know, like this goes with he has emotional regulation issues. All right.
So at the behest of Hupp, she was convinced that Russ had been escalating in his violent behavior toward Betsy. She thought the police should search Betsy's laptop. There was something about an email that was supposed to have been sent. And remember, this precipitates the signing over of the insurance policy beneficiary.
Do you ever get leery when someone suggests to the police where their investigation should go next.
I feel like law enforcement should be worried when someone suggests to them how to do their job.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she is concerned for her friend and is indicating that Russ is violent and that there may be evidence.
Can I ask you right here and now, was there anybody else to corroborate those statements about Russ?
In terms of the violent behavior?
Yeah, and the trouble, the issues with...
Issues with the marriage, yes.
Okay.
Violence, no.
That's what I was... And drinking problems?
I believe that there had been an indication from her daughters later that had been part of an issue. And the daughters, and I just want to note this because it's not in my notes, but I did see someplace they had started staying with their grandparents down in that Lake St. James or Lake St. Charles area Lake St. Louis, for Christ's sakes, area where she was staying with her mom.
Okay.
But I don't think they had any real issues with Russ. I'm going to be honest. I think he was kind of a child. Yeah. He didn't have kids of his own. He obviously does the gamer thing with his friends.
Yeah.
And he married the girl who had the DJ business and was fun and those type of things. They had confirmed some marriage issues. Finances had been a concern in terms of Russ. He did accumulate quite a bit of debt when he went back to school during their marriage, and he went and got this IT degree. So he had that kind of hanging out there, like he owed all this money. Mm-hmm. His wife was terminally ill.
I was going to say, and now his wife is dying.
Correct. Yeah. But I think that since her diagnosis, especially with the escalation of the cancer, her girls had even noted at one point that Russ had been being great. Okay. And Betsy had said things were going great. So in terms of corroborating any escalating violence, I think it's the opposite. Most of Betsy's other friends, at least ones who she had confided in, said that things were going pretty good right there.
Okay.
She was concerned about asking him to move.
Sure.
But there was no indication that he would be furious.
Yeah, that's not that doesn't speak out to me. Like, I think anybody's going to be concerned when you're like, hey, I want to kind of upheave our life a little bit more than it already is right now.
This is also Russ's home. Yeah. He owns it. I think Pam Hupp says at one point in time that he wouldn't even put her name on it. Pam was upset for Betsy that it was his home and she wanted to go back home to her parents' hometown, to her hometown.
Essentially spend the rest of her life living that out.
Close to the things that she loved, and also close to her treatment. They do a search, police do, of Betsy's laptop, and they find a document where she does express, so in terms of corroboration, she does express fear that her husband might kill her. So I'm going to read it to you.
That's convenient.
It is, and you're just going to have to be patient.
Okay.
This is the document found on the computer. Pam, I know we talked about this yesterday.
Oh, it was to Pam.
To Pam?
Shut your face. Okay.
Pam, I know we talked about this yesterday, but I feel I really need you to believe me. I really do feel, don't giggle. I
know we talked about this yesterday, but now I'm going to put it in writing so that other people can see. So when she tells the police, it corroborates that they had this conversation and she's putting it in writing. Okay.
I really do feel that Russ is going to do something to me. Last night, Wednesday, he asked me why I came home instead of staying at my mom's. I told him I had things to do. He was very angry with me for being in the house. I couldn't figure out why. Then I caught him with my laptop. He was reading my emails. When I asked him about it, he said he could do what he wants. He said I won't be around much longer, so what do I care? He continued to tell me how much money he would make after I die. He has been talking like this for months. He wants me to stay at my mom's. He likes the house to himself. He tells me it's his house and I'm just a guest. Right now I stay at my mom's, Linda's, or a friend's for most of the week. I was home last night and have to go back on Friday for the weekend. My mom has a friend staying with her from out of town, so I don't have a bed to sleep in. Last night was the worst. I fell asleep on the couch while watching TV. I woke up to Russ holding a pillow over my face. I didn't know what was going on. I broke loose and started to scream at him, asking him what he was doing. He said that he wanted me to know what dying feels like. I need to change my life insurance policy out of his name, but can't let him know that I have taken him off as beneficiary. I need your help with this. I can't give it to my girls because they will blow it. Do you think I could put it in your name and you could help my daughters when they need it? I really need to talk to you about this. I am so tired from the cancer. I am so afraid of staying out in Troy alone with Russ. If something happens to me, would you please show this to the police? Now, I do want you to note that after this, Betsy did voluntarily sign over the form as a beneficiary. And it is her signature on the beneficiary forms, just in case anybody wondered.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So just tuck this in your back pocket because we're going to come back to it.
It's so far in my back pocket, I can't even sit down.
Okay. Betsy's funeral was on January 3rd, 2012, and Russ attended. Betsy's family was highly upset. They were sure that Russ had killed Betsy.
Okay.
And that his violence toward her must have increased because this is the information that they have.
Well, right, right.
Now, earlier in the relationship, apparently, and this is where I got some of the information I think regarding from her family, Russ would scream at Betsy.
Okay.
And I think that there was one or two incidences where he may have threatened some type of physical violence. There's no report, no history, no criminal actions that I could see where anything had actually been reported. But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, everybody. I know that not every DV gets reported.
Of course.
And Russ had apparently had some temper issues before. On January 4th, which is the day after Betsy's funeral, Russell Faria was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. His bail was set at $250,000, and he was held in the county jail until his trial began on November 18th, 2013.
Okay.
Media reports immediately hit, stating things like marital problems lead to stabbing death of Lincoln County woman.
Yeah.
Reports of Betsy's fear of Russ are quoted in multiple sources and in these newspapers, including that she had been trying to leave him.
Okay. Even though we really don't have any evidence of that. She was wanting to move closer to her family with him.
Yeah. This is the information that the police have.
Yeah.
And so
Sure.
While they, during an active investigation, are not going to release all the information, they have certainly give statements. So the media comes, they ask for this, their press release, this is the information that's given. So Russ Faria's cousin had actually hired a defense attorney for him by the name of Joel Schwartz to represent him. Joel was described as roguish and whip smart, and his cousin, Russ's cousin, actually remembered Joel from a brief stint working as a legal secretary. So Joel Schwartz must have stood out to her.
Yeah.
And let me tell you this much, if you do any research, Joel Schwartz will stand out to you too. This is a very intelligent man. I don't think I give defense attorneys enough credit sometimes. I think people assume because I was a former prosecutor that my heart always lays with the prosecution. I can assure you with my current job, that is not the case.
Yeah.
I remain neutral. This guy's cool.
Yeah.
He's like Chester Cheeto. Okay?
Okay.
Smart.
I don't dislike all the defense attorneys who have
Course not.
cross-examined me.
No. I mean,
Only some.
you know how to deal with them though.
Yeah.
So Joel here, Schwartz, he starts, I'm going to call him Schwartz for the rest of this.
Yeah, I like it. It sounds cooler,
It
really.
is. It's awesome. Like from Spaceballs. Let the
Yeah.
Schwartz be with you. Schwartz started reviewing police reports and was in disbelief that the police weren't looking into Pam Hupp in more detail.
Sure.
Instant.
Right.
In preparing his defense of Faria for the upcoming trial, he noted that Pam Hupp was the last person to see Betsy alive, and 4 days earlier, she had been made the sole beneficiary of Betsy's life insurance policy.
This is like investigation 101. I don't mean to be a dick, but like the last person to see
You
her
be a dick.
alive. And
I'm just giving you my objective explanation of this story, and you subjectivize it as much as you like.
Okay.
She was the last person to see Betsy alive. The beneficiary thing happened 4 days earlier, as I indicated. In his opinion, Betsy had given the police multiple versions of the events from the day Betsy died, and he didn't feel that she had a solid alibi. Russ Faria had an alibi. In fact, he had 4 solid alibis in the form of people swearing he had been with them all evening and left at 9 p.m.
Right.
His drive home would have taken 23 minutes without any type of stops, like anything major taking up his time. And there was a crumpled food receipt in the back of his SUV. Some people say it was in the side on the floorboard. I don't know which is true, but irrespective, there is a crumpled Arby's food receipt.
Right.
Time-stamped 9:09 p.m.
Corroborating the fact that he had the munchies and needed to get himself a beef and cheddar.
A junior beef and cheddars, 2 of them. And Schwartz's research.
Is that really any better?
No
you should have
judgment.
just got a big beef and cheddar.
You feel better about yourself when you eat 2 small ones.
The light ones.
Like sliders. Dude, just eat a hamburger. By the time you eat 6 freaking buns, you've just gone over your caloric intake. In Schwartz's research, if Russ made it home in exactly 23 minutes with no delays, he would have had 9 minutes to stab Betsy 55 times and clean himself up before calling 911.
Right.
There was not a speck
And then
of blood.
have all the blood coagulate and her body stiffen and go cold.
You are just going to love when I get to this trial. There was not a speck of blood on Russ's body, fingernail clippings, or his clothing. And he was still wearing the orange t-shirt and Sonoma brand jeans that he was seen wearing on a security camera earlier that night when he put gas in his car, bought cigarettes, and stopped for them Snapples.
Yep.
The police and prosecutors, on the other hand, were suspicious of Russ's activities. He purchased cigarettes at the U-Gas in Wentzville, got gas at a different filling station where he purchased the smokes. They questioned that Russ appeared to be creating an alibi by getting caught on camera on the surveillance systems at these locations.
Or maybe he just knows that his smokes are on sale or cost less at this gas station.
Are you reading my mind?
No, but
Here's the
like
thing.
common fucking sense. I do this shit all the time.
Russ could explain all of this to his attorney. He always bought his cigarettes at the U-Gas in Wentzville because they were 60 cents cheaper than the Conoco where he got gas.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. See, I don't think anybody else has pointed that out in anything I've read about this case. So nice job, friend.
Thank you. And he always got dog food at Green's Country Store in Lake St. Louis.
Yep. I get mine at the same place every time.
Why?
Too.
Why do you do it?
Because I like their prices.
Okay.
That's why.
How about this? They had lived there prior and he had a rewards card.
Oh God, that's true too. I do have a rewards card where I get mine.
So you right. So this is why he went to all those different places.
Sure.
Also, Russ did his errands before 6 p.m. when Betsy was still alive.
Yeah.
And we know Betsy was still alive then because at 7:05 p.m., Betsy actually left a holiday greeting on Mark Hupps' voicemail. Okay. So when Pam and she are coming back, they call Pam's husband, Mark, and are like, hope you had a Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, Mark. Yep. Okay. And Betsy's on there. She can be heard on there. We know she's still alive at 7:05 p.m. The prosecution had some strong evidence in their opinion. I'm being fair. I'm being fair here.
I wish people could have just seen your face, though. I love you.
I love you too. The presence of blood on Russ Faria's slippers. Schwartz, this is thing number 1.
Okay.
Schwartz, however, was convinced that the slippers were used to frame his client.
Yes. He wasn't wearing his goddamn slippers when he was going to play video games and watch movies with his friends.
No, I do keep mine by the door sometimes, though, just so you know. Take my shoes off.
Sometimes mine are. Yeah, but...
He told the assistant attorney on the case, Nathan Swanson, it's clear it's not blood he walked through. And there's no spatter on the top, which he assumed there would have to be if he wore them when he killed her and stabbed her 55 times.
Right.
And then he said, you don't murder someone and then put on your slippers.
No, that's really like got to be the last fleeting thought. Or you don't put them on prior to. You know what? I want to be comfy for this. Let me get my Hugh Hefner slippers.
Right.
No.
Pam Hupp had told investigators that she thought it was odd that when she was taking Betsy home, she didn't have her keys. So here's a new thing.
Okay.
And that Russ had told Betsy not to bring her purse to chemo. Betsy had...
How does she know that Russ told her not to bring her purse?
Well, Betsy had in fact not taken her purse to her parents when she went there for Christmas. Now, Russ explained to his attorney that he never told Betsy to leave her purse at home, but what had happened was they had gone all weekend, first to his parents and then to her sister's for Christmas with her dad. He said Betsy didn't bother to bring her purse. They're just going to these 2 Christmases, but then decided to end up staying at her mother's down there in that Lake St. Louis area and spend Monday night.
Right. So she didn't have her purse.
Right.
I don't take my purse to my mom and dad's house.
Right.
Unless I'm driving and need my license.
Right. Absolutely. And remember, she's not driving places right now.
No.
People are driving her places.
Yes, exactly. And can we just pull out the fact that there is a such thing as chemo brain? And you just forget shit.
There's also pregnancy brain, and there's also mom brain,
and just Charnell brain, which Megan is terrifying brain. Sometimes.
Mine is beautiful in so many scary ways.
Right.
So when she's wanting to go home on Tuesday after chemo, remember, after not sleeping well, she hadn't slept well. She called Russ to tell him she didn't have her keys, and he told her he would leave the door unlocked.
Yeah, perfect. Great solution. Problem solving.
I read 2 different things. I didn't put this in here either, but I just want to bring it up because I think it's interesting. She did say those things to Russ, like, I didn't sleep very well. I'm coming home. You know, Pam's taking me home. Her mom wanted her to stay still. And like, she didn't really want her to go, but she was like, well, Pam came all the way here to pick me up, so I'm going to go.
Oh.
And that is how the miniseries, it's called The Truth About Pam, by the way, now that we know that Pam Hupp is an issue here. And that's how it was portrayed in that documentary or in that miniseries. I didn't find much proof of that. Okay. Not to be rude to anybody at Dateline. I'm sure they investigated this far longer and have way deeper funds than I put into this. But in the research that I did, it would appear, and Betsy's last conversation in terms of evidence with Russ is that she wanted to go home because mom had snored the night before.
Yeah, and mom very well maybe wanted her to stay because mom wasn't being kept up by her own snoring. Right? So, I don't think that I'd be like, Mom, I have to go home because your snoring's keeping me
Dude,
up.
I would. That's a normal night for me. I'm like, if you don't stop snoring, I'm going to go sleep someplace else.
Yeah, but I would just be like, Mama, I'm just ready to go home. So I'm going to go home.
Exactly. Well, you're nicer to your mom than your spouse usually. I mean, I am.
100%.
So again,
the woman gave me life. Right?
She did. 27 hours of labor, as I've been told 1,000 times. She called Russ again to tell him she didn't have the keys. So to corroborate this, Rita Wolf, who is one of Betsy's best friends from high school, had actually talked to Betsy around 5 p.m. that day. And Betsy interrupted herself during the conversation, as you and I have both done, and blurts out in the middle of their chat, oh crap, I left my keys at home. I'm going to have to call Russ and have him leave the door open.
Yep. Okay.
Russ's attorney, Schwartz, also had strong feelings about the failed polygraph. You excited? You ready for this?
I am, because I, too, have strong feelings.
His opinion was that no reputable examiner would have given an actual polygraph after someone had been up 32 hours and after they had been smoking marijuana.
Amen.
He wondered then, if we're talking about people, and he's not indicating this person wasn't reputable. He's saying if you were reputable, you wouldn't do this. He wondered then if it had been a faux polygraph. Russ could only explain to his attorney that someone sat in front of him with a laptop and asked questions.
What?
Doing a faux polygraph, Charnell, is not illegal.
I know.
But they have to be disclosed.
Yes.
And Schwartz never received any discovery that there was one.
And please explain to the people what discovery means from a legal perspective.
Okay, so discovery it's the right to obtain any information that the other side has on you. Specifically in a criminal case, the prosecution has to turn over everything. Every piece of evidence, any exculpatory evidence, it all must come to the defense, so the attorney, so that they can prepare their defense. If evidence actually is not disclosed or in existence and withheld, motions can be filed and the evidence can either be thrown out or a case could potentially be dismissed if there is deception there in terms of withholding evidence.
Yes.
I could give a class on this, but I think that probably explains why Schwartz is like, I didn't get my discovery.
Yeah.
This has not come to me. It has not been disclosed.
And I wanted you to explain that for the people, because so often, as we were talking about TV dramas, so often we will see these dramatized things where they're like, well, Your Honor,
the smoking gun.
Yes, I just discovered this. I'm like, that's not allowed.
No way.
And so people might not realize that evidence is shared by both sides and has to be.
Now, just let me interject that if evidence comes up during a trial that is new, it could potentially come in as long as there is a motion and there is a conversation where everything is shared between the prosecutor and the
other
defense.
side has to see it first.
You got it.
Yeah.
And have an opportunity to comment on it, and the judge would make a ruling as to whether it's coming in.
Right.
And I have seen it come in where they find that it is probative.
Yeah, certainly.
And more probative than prejudicial and necessary for the trial.
But it's not just I'm going to give this evidence that no one else has heard before, and, and it's admissible in court and the jury hears it and there's no unhearing it. No.
Right.
So okay. Thank you for pointing
You're
that
welcome.
out for everybody.
So again, Schwartz then, because he doesn't have anything information-wise on this, he asked for video and audio of the polygraph examination.
Yeah.
And then he's told the video camera wasn't working.
Sure. Convenient.
He never received any data from that polygraph. The only thing he was able to get was a consent form signed by Russ and the typed summary that indicated, quote unquote, there were significant, consistent physiological responses indicative of deception. Russ had offered to take a second polygraph. This happens often, y'all. Either another state police poly in our situations, or police poly, or even an independent poly. But remember, polygraphs are not admissible in court.
No.
They are not. They are more of a
there's
tool.
A reason.
Yeah, they're more of a tool. A prosecutor would use those themselves to determine whether there is deception and I should move forward with this case, or, dude, this guy's passing everything, I'm not going to charge this. And a defense attorney may want that information, or even have an independent polygraph done because they're concerned about what was asked in the state poly. I was always very particular about the questions and would assist in formulating the 3 questions that are asked with police, and defense attorneys do the same thing. So you have to be very careful about what you ask in terms of the response you're going to get.
And can we point out that you have that, there is that signed document. This was a man that was willing to take a polygraph.
He was.
Multiple times,
He offered.
And I
And
think that in itself can speak volumes.
Well, Wes, when not only Russ, by the way, but all 4 of his alibis offered to poly.
Awesome. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And the Lincoln County prosecutor declined.
Of course they did. Right. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
Now-
Cool.
Charnell has some opinions, guys. I'm just giving you the info. Now, Pam Hupp had cooperated with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office fully. She offered DNA, fingerprints, and even at the time, the time of her trash pickup. I think that was to establish an alibi. I just found it weird. Offered the time of her trash pickup.
I have fucking no idea when my garbage gets picked up.
I do. Well, it gets picked up before 7 a.m. on Monday, because when I head out the driveway and go, son of a bitch, I forgot to take the
Put it
garbage
out there.
When detectives arrived to her home on December 28th and told her that Betsy had died, Pam was just stepping out of the shower. So she's wearing clothes, but her hair's wet and stuff. She told investigators that she had dropped Betsy off at her home in Troy around 7 p.m. And then she drove home and watched TV with her husband, showered, and went to bed. She did explain that she showered routinely both in the morning and evening. Pam told officers that she dropped Betsy off the night before and that the house looked creepy. It was all dark, but with the doors unlocked. She thought,
what the fuck?
She thought Russ was home early because there was a silver Nissan Maxima in the drive. Apparently this is one of their vehicles. She mentioned it multiple times to the point that when they asked her what she was driving that night, she said a silver Nissan Maxima.
Oh my God.
Which she was not driving.
Tame your tits,
It was
chick.
a car Westro.
God.
Right. Now here it gets interesting. Pam said she didn't go inside when she dropped Betsy off. Then she said, I just went in and turned on the hall light. Then she said she went all the way back to the bedroom because Betsy wanted to show her a jewelry cabinet Russ got her for Christmas.
All the way back in the bedroom where the slippers were thrown in the closet.
Pam said that when she left the house, Betsy was all snuggled up on the couch in a blanket. And later Pam said she may have still been on the couch, but today it makes more sense that she walked me to the door.
Oh, just today. Just today, it makes more sense that I think she actually wasn't snuggled on the couch. She walked my ass to the door. I don't really know.
I'm giving you the evidence. Pam also told the police that she called Betsy to, quote unquote, tell her I was home, but then corrected the statement and said, well, to tell her I was almost home. In court at the Faria trial, and I'm not to the trial yet, so I'm jumping ahead, but I just want to insert this now for clarification. Pam testified that she'd called when she got to the highway interchange because that meant she was home free, as in she knew the way home from there. Her cell phone records showed that she called at 7:27 p.m., but she was still in Troy, the town Betsy lived in. She said she had reached a fork in the road, so she pulled over to make the call. Per Pam, Betsy didn't answer or call her back. Well, she's dead. Pam further testified that she texted Betsy and got no reply. And then there's proof. She calls Betsy's mother and said that she's worried Betsy was mad at her for not staying. She said she was worried about Betsy's mental state, as she was supposed to find out the next day if her chemo was working. I believe that's true. Mm-hmm. Betsy's mom also tried to call Betsy and got no answer because she was dead.
Right. Interesting how she pulls mom into this. Like, I'm concerned about Betsy right here and now after I've dropped her off.
Yes.
Interesting.
Pam stated that she went to bed after that. So the accounts that Pam gave,
She showered.
were
And then went to
she
bed.
did because that's her routine.
Wonder what color that water was.
Yeah, we could only guess. The accounts that Pam gave were jotted down by detectives and they left. They did return the next day to question her husband, Mark. Strangely, Pam was allowed to stay for the interview with Mark.
What the heck?
I'm just telling you the facts, and I understand that you're going to have some feelings about this, knowing how investigations are conducted.
Feel this right to the taint, girl. Like, this is not settling
it's so
well.
pokey.
It is.
Mark reported.
It's so pokey.
Mark reported he had. I'm not trying to make light about the situation,
this is
you
how
guys.
we
And again,
cope.
I'm going
know.
to clarify that Charnell's commentary is Charnell's commentary. I am simply giving you the objective facts as I have been researched. Mark reported he'd been home alone on the 27th and that Pam had called to let him know she arrived at Betsy's, but his cell phone was left in the truck. Okay, so he's like, well, she called me to let me know, but I didn't actually find that out till later because I left my phone in my truck. Typical man.
Yeah.
Then Pam completely takes over the conversation and starts talking about how Betsy was afraid of Russ, that he was a huge drinker, and that he had given her a cloudy Gatorade for a workout and it smelled terrible, so she'd spit it out. She also said he was degrading to Betsy and kept talking about how much money he would get when she died. This is when she disclosed that Betsy said she had written her an email.
I was just going to say, that sounds suspiciously like the email.
About how scared she was of Russ and how he'd put a pillow over her face and said that was what it felt like to die. Pam said she never got the email. So she and Betsy tried to print it out, but they couldn't connect Pam's printer to Betsy's laptop. Mm-hmm. Pam asked them to look for the email, but then corrected herself and said the document. Faria's attorney, just again, tucking in the back pocket. Faria's attorney Schwartz went over Pam's ever-evolving accounts of the events. That is his words and opinion. Mm-hmm. First, she thought she had seen a silver Nissan sedan. Then she said it might have been Faria's big blue Ford Explorer SUV.
That's a very different vehicle.
Whatever car she thought Russ was driving, she'd say she saw in the drive.
Yeah.
He was driving the SUV, by the way.
Okay.
And why shift? This is Schwartz reasoning. Why shift from I didn't go in to I did go in to I went in and went all the way to the back bedroom?
Yeah.
Basically, in defense attorney Schwartz's opinion, Pam Hupp was placing herself everywhere there was potential evidence to be found.
It's exactly.
I knew it was.
Like when I said, oh, you mean in the bedroom where the slippers were? That's exactly my thoughts too. I'm with Schwartz.
I told you you're going to like him.
Yeah.
The major case squad of Greater St. Louis had swabbed Pam for DNA, but Schwartz saw no record of that DNA being compared.
And when did they swab her?
I believe that she offered that the first time they went and interviewed her.
Okay.
No one even confirmed that Pam had worn what she said she had worn that night. And to his knowledge, no one ever searched for or tested the clothing or her car for blood.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
No.
All right.
Pam had called both Mark and Betsy when she left Betsy's house that night because she was nervous about finding her way home.
Well, I wanted to ask about that too.
Yeah.
Hasn't she driven from her friend's house to her home multiple times?
You are channeling the thought process of Attorney Schwartz. She had been there quite a few times, including the previous week. So this was odd to him. Schwartz asked other common sense questions too. Note, these are not at trial, by the way. He's asking these as he's preparing a defense and conducting his own investigation.
Yeah.
This is the mind of a defense attorney going through his client's case.
Makes sense.
If you went out of your way to drive your friend home just so she could get some sleep, why would you bother calling when you were just a few miles from her house?
My next question too. Okay, good.
And if she didn't answer your call and you knew she was exhausted by chemo and coming down with a cold, wouldn't you think she just wanted to sleep?
Yes. Yes.
But you call her mom and tell her you're worried about her?
Right. No, she's not worried about her friend in that moment if she's calling knowing she's probably waking her up. Your friend is tired from her chemo. She doesn't care if you got home safe or not.
Absolutely. So at this point in time, Russ Faria explains his knowledge of Pam and Betsy's friendship to his attorney. He said that over the last year, they'd started hanging out. He liked Pam. He thought she was sweet and friendly. And It wasn't, though, until Betsy was diagnosed with cancer that they really became close. He did add that a lot of people wanted to be with Betsy. She was well-liked, with dear friends. And you're going to see just all these people who love her. He said he didn't have any issues with Pam and that she was super easy to talk to, but he could name at least 6 other people that Betsy was closer to.
Yeah, yeah.
So Pam never mentioned to police at first about the life insurance policy. Note that.
Oh, really?
Later, she told the police that there had been a change of beneficiary form, but she had no idea if Betsy had ever even mailed the form in. But true to this woman's ability to flip more than a pancake spatula, she then on January 17th told State Farm that they'd gone straight to the post office because Betsy wanted to make sure the form was postmarked.
Oh my God.
State Farm then, Charnell, does their job.
Yeah.
They report to the police.
Good.
A Detective Sergeant Ryan McCarrick the same day. He assured State Farm that Pam Hupp was not a suspect so the company could pay out the life insurance proceeds.
What?
Your face is priceless right now.
What? Shut your
Listen,
face.
State Farm had recorded that change of beneficiary the morning of Betsy's death. Schwartz even mused to himself. This is Schwartz doing his investigation.
Sure.
If Pam was the murderer, she was cutting it close.
I'm saying.
Pam even told the police, if it's mailed Friday, we had Christmas. She had to be killed. How does that work? She has to be killed or they have to receive it before she's killed. Otherwise, he's the beneficiary. So if I set it up in my own little mind, why didn't I just wait till Friday to make sure they got it? Oh, yeah, this is what she's saying. And Schwartz thinks...
Pam, you've put a lot of thought into this.
And God, you are channeling Schwartz. We should contact him so you two can hang out. And Schwartz thinks, yeah, because this way you can implicate my client and you know where he is every Tuesday.
Yes.
Here's more shadiness. In 2011, Pam and Betsy, who knew that her cancer was terminal at that point, collected money for another family affected by cancer. It was later discovered that that family was never made aware of any collection.
Oh my God, Megan.
Pam and Betsy went door to door passing out flyers and collected $10,000 for that family. Betsy was happy to be leaving some kind of legacy, helping another family affected by the same disease that was killing her. She wanted to be remembered when she was gone. The flyer even had a picture of the Murphy family, who was the family they were helping, from their Christmas card, and stated that this would be James Murphy's wife Laura's last Christmas. Betsy, to everyone's knowledge, never knew of this scam, and Pam Hupp never turned any money over to the Murphy family.
Wow.
And Laura Murphy, well, she did have cancer, but she wasn't on her deathbed at that time, and she actually survived 2 more Christmases.
Oh, good. Oh.
The life insurance policy that Betsy made Pam the sole beneficiary on was a State Farm life insurance policy worth $150,000.
Okay.
Russ Faria had been the primary beneficiary until it was switched to Pam. Betsy had told Pam to hold on to the money and use it to make sure that her children were taken care of. This is true. After Betsy was murdered on December 27th of 2011 and up to the date of the trial, Pam had held on to that money and hadn't given any of it to Betsy's children.
Of course not.
Detectives did think that this was strange.
Oh, just strange. You don't have to have a detective license to think that that's strange.
This attorney, Doug Charnell, at this point, not just a matter of defending his client, he truly believed Russ Faria was innocent.
Sure.
And that Pam needed to be investigated.
Yeah.
Defense attorneys almost everywhere will tell you they do not always believe their clients.
Correct.
They have to, they have a job to do.
They do.
He believed Russ.
Yeah.
From the moment he met him.
This is probably different than some other cases he's
I'm
defended
sure
before.
it is. Schwartz dug for info on Pam's polygraph too. Remember, she agreed to one. Well, all of a sudden, past head injuries prevented her from having one.
Oh, convenient.
A doctor wrote a note indicating she could not undergo a polygraph because of medical.
What are her past head injuries? Throwing herself against a wall?
But when he was deposed later, the doctor, he said she didn't think she could do it and actually stated that there were no limitations or conditions to prevent her from taking one.
Dear God.
Detective Sergeant Ryan McCarrick said under his deposition that in his training and experience, he saw no signs of deception from Pam. Okay, listen to this.
I am trying to remain as
Neutral.
professional as I can here.
On March 20th of 2013, we're nearing the trial date, Schwartz deposes Pam Hupp. She's a witness, so she can do this. Now, I don't always cite things in here. We wait until I get them all printed out for you. But this is done by extensive research from a lady by the name of Jeanette Cooperman. This article that she wrote, which we will link in the show notes, is fantastic. And she dug and got transcripts. And so this is from a transcript in the deposition of Pam Hupp by Attorney Schwartz.
Okay.
He says, "What's your disability?" "I'm not sure what they classified as. I know I have drop foot and balance problems. It happened," she said, "when she tripped at work and hit a filing cabinet with her head. This was in November of 2009. She said that she'd filed for workers' comp and that the case was still pending." The attorney, Michael Goldberg, and that must have been her attorney, did not return messages seeking to confirm that she had retained him. So when she said she hired an attorney and was going after him, that attorney never returned any messages. It can't be confirmed. Well, some of that might just be client confidentiality. I actually don't. Whoever you are, Michael Goldberg, you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, right.
Schwartz says, "You have a head injury?" Pam says, "Yes." "What's your head injury?" "I have no idea." "How do you know you have memory issues?" "Well, because you're asking me questions and I don't remember." Oh. Even after the prolonged
Pam.
jousting, right? Verbal jousting. Schwartz was unprepared for what came next.
She doesn't remember, but she remembers everything about the night where she was not killing Betsy. I have memory problems, but I can remember all of these details.
Charnell, anybody who takes to watching either that miniseries or other documentaries on Pam, you are not going to love her personality as she is portrayed. Because this type of verbal jousting and just frankly that kind of laissez-faire sarcasm that she has, well, I may find funny in usual human circumstances, it didn't come across real well. Pam said she didn't have health insurance, couldn't afford it. She said she didn't have life insurance either.
So I'm hearing money issues.
Listen,
okay.
This is what Schwartz can't believe. "I don't believe in it for myself." Her husband, however, did have life insurance. And quote unquote, she says, "and amazingly, he's still alive because it's a lot." Schwartz blinked and says, "I'm sorry?" She says, "I said amazingly he's still alive because it's a lot and I sold it to him, so." He goes, "What do you mean by that?" She goes, "I mean, I guess if I wanted a lot of money, I could kill him instead of her." He says, "Instead of who?" She says, "Betsy." Schwartz says, "Who said you killed Betsy?" She says, "You did, or your private detectives told my friends that." He says, "And you didn't kill Betsy?" "I did not kill Betsy." "You still willing to take a polygraph?" "No." And Charnell, that's where I'm going to leave you with part one.
I have none of the words. Not a single one. Syllable. Grunting. Utterances. That's all I have.
Charnell, caveman. Woman.
Me, cave woman. Bring me meat.
So there we are.
Holy shit.
And those of you who are Patreons, you're gonna get to go listen to part 2.
Yeah.
But will you bathe me? We've had some listeners send us some really good shit lately.
We have. I'm gonna bathe you.
Thank you.
But I want to give a little personal anecdote of an update because people have actually asked us on social media how it's going with me just saying to my husband Gumbo Yaya whenever he mutters.
Yeah.
And he had stopped doing it for a while. Well, he has started, and there's been some situations where he's just turned away from me and mumbled, and then gotten a little aggravated when I made him repeat himself 3 times because I couldn't hear his. And so I just started with, "I'm sorry, did you say Gumbo Yaya?" "What?"
Huh?
"Gumbo Yaya. What the fuck is that?" "Isn't that what you just said?" "No, that's not what I just said." "Well, what'd you just say?" And then he'd repeat himself louder. Working.
Enunciate.
It's working.
Our Gumbo Yaya method is working.
It is working. I'm here to tell you because then they'll correct you. "No, I did not say Gumbo Yaya." "Well, what did you say?" And then they'll actually speak to you clearly and look at you while doing so.
You need to use the other one too, the doodaloogle.
Yes. Doodaloogle. I'll try that one next.
Because that's you and I'm Gumbo.
And you're Gumbo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will try that one next. So I just wanted y'all to know that little beta testing going on and it is working.
We are true scientific minds
and then
over here.
He asked me, "Where the fuck did you hear that?" And I said, "Oh, I heard it on this podcast called Crime Curious."
What'd he say?
Fucking walked away from me.
You would know if you listened.
Right. He knows exactly where I'm going with that. It's so funny.
Oh,
yeah.
Bathe me, shower me, lady.
Okay, this is from our Patreon, Jason. He posted it in the Patreon only group. I'm telling you, if you're not a Patreon, you're really missing out.
We
on
love
some
you,
funny
Australian
shit.
Jason.
Our Aussie friend, Jason. And I just got to say, crikey to this, because this is from the Daily Mail. And it is titled, if I can find the title, hold on. It is titled, Raccoon Rescued After Getting Stuck to Frozen Railway by His Private Parts. And my comment was, first of all, congratulations on having private parts big enough to get you stuck in a dangerous situation.
Especially as a little raccoon.
A little raccoon. Yeah, apparently he's got some cojones.
We have, those of you who have just tuned in or started listening, you're going to have to go back about, I don't know, 24 episodes or so, because there's been some raccoon incidences, and now it's like one of our mascots.
Yes, we have raccoon merch simply because the raccoon comes up a lot.
Bad choice of words.
It was. I didn't say goes up a lot. I said comes up.
Two of them.
In pairs.
So this poor little raccoon, it's cold out, and presumably
And
he's
picture.
been licking his genitals because they stick. Oh God, the poor little fella is straddled the railway.
And it says, freeze things happen. Chilly raccoon becomes stuck to the railway by his testicle hair after temperatures plummet to negative 12 degrees Celsius before railway workers freeze him using warm water and a shovel. Isn't that... This apparently this Neil Mullis, a 35-year-old, found the traumatized animal and carefully freed him using warm water and a shovel. And I love it.
The shovel part freaks me out a little bit. Like,
don't know
if it
it's just
didn't
'cause-
work out, they were gonna we're gonna put you out of your misery, buddy.
I think that they were too scared to get their own hands in there for fear of him scratching. So this was their solution: like throw hot water on him and scrape him off with the shovel.
I prefer my own version because, gentlemen, if any of you accidentally got your genitals stuck to metal, wouldn't you just want someone to hit you over the head with a shovel and put you out of your misery?
Yes. And I was
Please don't scrape those. Please don't scrape those with that shovel.
one slip.
One
slip in your life is different.
I know.
Yeah.
It's a home vasectomy.
It is. Yep. That is not the kind that you want.
No, never do a vasectomy at home. Nope. Bad idea.
But I liked that he said, this is what his quote, I poured the warm water under his bottom while a coworker worked the shovel under his butt to try and break him loose. After about 5 minutes of slowly working him loose, he was free. He jumped off the rail and ran into the woods, never looking back. Of course not. His dignity is still on that railway. That is why he did not look back.
Don't we love how because this was a raccoon, we're all like sympathetic, but if that was a man, we would have been super judgmental about him.
Well, first of all, if it was by his testicle hair, we've got a solution for that. Okay, but this poor raccoon.
Well, that's your own fault for not manscaping.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
yeah, we would have been totally judgmental.
We would have,
so.
but to a raccoon, we're so sympathetic. That's how we are, though. We're much more sympathetic to innocent animals than we are dumb ass humans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh,
so
Lord.
stay tuned for part 2 of the Betsy Faria, Louis Gumpenberger murders, which we're going to get into.
I love
more.
your perspective here. It is a deep dive. You're
I dig it.
doing a fantastic job, my friend.
I dig it. I dug it. It was in my brain for about 2 months.
If you want to join Patreon so you can get the next episode right away, the link is in the show notes. Go ahead and do that. Or
You won't be sorry.
No, patreon.com/crime curious. They get multiple episodes a week. Whereas we now make you guys wait 7 days. I'm sorry. We have to give the content to the people who keep us on air.
You have to bear with my schedule somewhat too. So if you love Charnell, then you have to love me too. We're a package deal, and believe it or not, I'm incredibly busy.
Yes.
So
yes.
I spend my time on these for fun.
Yep.
Because we all know with my position, I don't take any compensation. I'm doing this just because I love all of you.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
and my husband says I'm happier.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like therapy for us.
First of all, we like hanging out anyway. If you guys can't tell, we are real life friends. We are not the type of friends who could potentially allegedly kill each other for the insurance money.
No.
First of all, I probably need to work on that considering what I do. I don't know that I'm worth very much.
Oh, shoot.
But I think my husband might be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. The Facebook,
Yes,
Twitter?
follow us.
Are we on
Yes,
Twitter?
we're on Twitter. We're on
I
the
gotta
Twitter.
learn to tweet.
I'm not
Instagram.
great at it. Yep, Instagram. We're all there. Or hey, you can go over to crimecuriouspodcast.com. We have a website. There we are. Our merch is there. have at
Beautiful faces are there.
Yes. And we are working on more merch too. I kind of got a little bit of a snarky email this morning about
We didn't have enough to offer.
Yeah, I mean it's we're just starting off.
Oh,
so
we'll do. And if you have like major requests and enough people want them, we can make that happen.
Right,
so.
right. Yeah, this isn't the only thing that's ever going to be offered. Like we will continue. We are very busy people though, and so
We
getting
will
everything
get
going,
to
yes.
accommodate y'all.
And it goes back into the podcast.
All
so
right. Well, until next time then, everybody,
Yes.
keep it curious.
Keep listening.
Bye-bye.
Are you sick of giving the special people in your life the same old lame gifts year after year? Well, I am here to help you, friends. You know, if you're an avid listener of this podcast, at the beginning of each episode, I shake a genuine kangaroo scrotum sack for good luck. Now you can own your own genuine handmade kangaroo scrotum sack, and not just a sack. Maybe you're looking for a bottle opener, a unique back scratcher, whatever it is that you're looking for, you can find it at ruballs.com and enter code CRIME10 for 10% off your order. That's ROOBALLS.com, promo code CRIME10 for 10% off your order. Keep it curious and keep it shaken.